I think that if that is true, if doing heavier squats or more specific training, anything like that, makes you better at your chosen task, then yeah, absolutely do that. But I have found that is not true for everybody. It's true most of the time for most people, and I think that's why it's the standard way of progressing in powerlifting, because it is true if it was wrong most of the time, we would have figured that out by now. But if you're one of the people that it's wrong for, then that's important to you. My classic example of this is I had a guy, I worked with him for years before emerging strategies was a thing. And we train in the typical way. He would always, and it sounds obvious when I frame it this way, but I don't know any other way to frame it. But as we would approach a competition, he would always kind of get beat up, and the results would always fizzle as we would get close to the competition. It was really frustrating. And you think, well, what do you do about that? Well, you try to tweak things here and there, but you have this paradigm that you're not even really aware of, that, well, as I approach the competition, of course the intensity has to go up. Like, we're not even questioning that aspect of programming. It's assumed to be true. But when we started doing the emerging strategy stuff, the obvious observation at that point is that it's directly tied to whenever we do these high intensity blocks. If we stick to like middle intensity zones, he just gets stronger. He doesn't get beat up, he just gets stronger. And so we said, well, if training at high intensity makes you worse, then why would we do that right before the competition, And when you frame it like that, it's like, well, of course, why would you? So we sent him into a competition, having done nothing heavier than a set of 6 at a 9 RPE, which is, 83 or so percent. He did nothing heavier than 83% that whole block. Attempt selection was a little bit nerve-wracking because he hadn't touched any of those heavier weights. We're basing this purely on estimates, which we had a lot of data, so we had reasonable faith in our estimates, but it's still nerve-wracking. But he came away with some big PRs from that. And then from there, we said, well, how can we improve on this idea a little bit? What if we just had 1 or 2 sessions of a high intensity? Is that enough for us to benchmark where we're at without you getting beat up? And for him, it was, so you just kind of, you use this as a tool to navigate the path and solve problems that you see come up. For him, that was really important. The specificity wasn't working out, so we opted for whatever was working.
And I still think over the long enough timeline, even if you are one of those individuals where a more linear approach works a lot, there will be a time where that slows down and you have to start thinking about things like this, where you have to incorporate a little bit of change and a little bit of variation to stimulate more growth. And then you can go right back to what you were doing before. The problem
it's in our adages, right? Like we even say like nothing works forever, but
everything works for a time.
We don't apply that to like our most deeply held, dogma about what training is. Well, I've got to train 4 days a week because that's how a powerlifter trains. Like, we don't apply that to, like, there's, and like I see it even in things that I do. Like, I write these different strategies, and I look at them. If I look at them all as a whole, like, I see how they're all related to each other, and I think there's something that's going to stagnate in that. You've got to get, and you see it with athletes that, athletes working with Coach A quits and goes with Coach B, and they get a boost in their result. Another athlete's working with Coach B, quits and goes with Coach A, gets a boost in the result. So it's not that one coach is better than the other. Maybe it's the change itself, the fact that it's a different system, the fact that it's breaking those molds of all these things that, that's just how we do it,
Mentally too. You got somebody new telling you something, you're going to listen a little bit more.
reinvigorated a little bit.
Well, I'm starting to think that that's it, that I'm starting to think that there's maybe a lot more to this attentional quality, like think of it this way, like if you squat on Monday and every week you come in, you squat on Monday and okay, we're going to change the exercises, we're going to change the protocols and all this, but every Monday is squat day, what if it's not? What if you come in and deadlift on Monday? Well, that's different, or what if, your training is always percentage based? Well, now it's RPE based. What if it's, or vice versa? It doesn't even matter. But the fact that there's some big change to the foundation of the workout, it's not the load on the body, the stress on the body is different, but you have to pay attention differently because things are different now. The rules that you're using to make these choices are different, and now it's not autopilot. You have to directly pay attention to it. And I think maybe that's a thing that is stimulating in itself,